Now, the National Prosecuting Authority's Deputy National Director believes there have been significant breakthroughs on high-level corruption. Advocate Ouma Rabaji-Rasethaba says a recent R3.4 billion preservation order granted by the High Court sitting in Pretoria for Optimum Coal Mine shows the NPA's efforts are paying off. Rabaji-Rasethaba says this directly links Gupta family businesses to corruption as well as state capture. She joins me now to discuss just this. Advocate, thank you very much for your time. You know, given the criticism by some of the NPA's inability to expeditiously investigate and prosecute complex cases, some say this very preservation order signals a more positive trajectory where the NPA will use any and every avenue, just like we're seeing now, to ensure justice. Now, before we get, though, to the strategy that you've been employing, just paint a picture of how complex this case has been to even get to this point of a preservation order.
Good morning, Fundo, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity at AFU. You know, to answer your question, this case is extremely complex. This case relates to the purchase of Optimum Coal Mine and Optimum Coal Terminal by the Gupta family and their associates. They basically paid for the mine through 8 transactions, and all of them were as a result of money laundering and corruption. Some money was transferred into 3 accounts, additional 3 accounts, into another 5 accounts, and then finally it made its way into purchasing the mine. And another big amount left Eskom Direct, and it went to purchase the mine directly. Obviously, all these 8 amounts were made their way into an escrow account held to purchase the mine. So it was extremely complex to crack the case, in the sense that, particularly with the money that went through overseas, to foreign countries, we had to get financial statements to prove that these are proceeds of crime. So we really unearthed criminality by the Gupta family and associates in this case.
And you know, it is a very significant case. I must say, it was interesting of an argument that the practitioners as legal counsel put forward, that the business was funded by a legitimate loan from the Bank of Baroda, regardless of the money flows leading up to the loan being extended. But you are of the view that these are ill-gotten proceeds, irrespective of the loan being legitimate, and the courts actually decided or ruled in your favor in this matter.
Yes, because we're able to prove. And we use a civil standard that on a prima facie basis, there are reasonable grounds to believe that these funds were proceeds of crime. We showed where the money came from. It came from Eskom, it came from Transnet Benefit Fund, before it went to some of the Gupta companies. Some of it went to their associates overseas, Bank of Bermuda, and it came back all the way to South Africa. So we showed the money flow. That was the complexity. And we've been able to bear all these facts before the court, and we got 2 preservation orders in that regard.
And I suppose it seeks to develop the law in this respect, because you had here the acts pit against each other, where you've got the Companies Act and you've also got the Prevention of Organised Crimes Act, and where they sought to say the Companies Act overrides your act, but it was not the case.
It was not the case. The court didn't buy into that argument that was advanced by the defendants in this case, because the way in which the draft order reads, you'll see that we found a way of making the Prevention of Organised Crime to be compatible with the Companies Act, in the sense that the curator appointed in terms of POCA is going to work with the business rescue practitioners appointed in terms of the Companies Act. So we found a good way of implementing both pieces of legislation.
So in this instance, like you were saying, it's in terms of Section 38, subsection 2. The orders that were issued, we've got the curator now that's going to evaluate, and then what happens? We're looking to sell, or how will it work?
So the curator has got a couple of powers to discharge in terms of POCA. First, he needed to get letters of curatorship, he needed to pay insurance, and then he's going to work with the BRPs, and the court order reads in good faith, and they also must cooperate with him. Then he's going to evaluate the mine, and within 70 days, he's going to have to report to the High Court as to what he has found in the mine, what are the assets of the mine, what are the losses, what are liabilities. We've got about 134 creditors. He needs to say what is the state of all those benefits and losses in the mine, what is the liabilities, what are the assets. And remember, the curator is appointed by the court. So he's going to file his report within 70 days with the registrar of the court. Then he's going to sell the mine at the end of it all, when it gets forfeited to the state after 90 days. And of course, it's going to be on market-related prices. In his report, he would have indicated what would be the first value of the mine, what is the market-related price of the mine, and then that's on the basis that the mine is going to be sold. We're going to pay all the creditors. Of course, there are those that are preference creditors, depending on the price we paid. And then we're going to pay the victims of crime, which in this regard is Eskom, Transnet, and the balance will pay into the criminal asset recovery account, which is held in Treasury.
No, the wheels of justice are indeed turning now. Then to the strategy that you're employing as the NPA. In this particular case, you decided to institute civil proceedings first, and I take it that this will then pave the way for criminal proceedings.
Definitely. This is the strategy. So the strategy at NPA is that in tackling corruption, we obviously, if we can, and if the evidence shows that there's a process of crime or this is an instrumentality of crime, we're going to first freeze the assets in terms of Prevention of Organized Crime Act, as you've said, and thereafter we'll make sure that our colleagues in the investigating directorate, and we also work together with DPCI, investigate and proceed, prosecute the criminals to make sure that we bring to book and we make those accountable for state capture to make sure that they pay for what they have done. Remember that this money that they have looted would have made sure that we've built schools, there's running water. You've seen how many communities are complaining about lack of basic services. So
an Eskom that cannot function right now, an Eskom and Transnet that cannot function right now is as a result of all of this.
It's as a result of all of this. So we need to bring back the money. And then, of course, as I've said, it's a two-pronged strategy. Working with all our law enforcement partners, we will make sure that we bring to book those who are accountable for state looting.
There's clearly method in the slower pace. It has yielded results. I mean, this is, I stand corrected, but this has to be the largest preservation order in the history of the NPA.
This is the largest preservation order in the history of NPA, 3.4 billion. We've had big cases before, but none this size. And remember, this is an estimate valuation because the curator is yet to do a full evaluation of the mine and tell us what is the market value of this mine. And it was important that we use POCA. AFU goes in first to make sure that the assets are not dissipated. You'll recall the facts in this case were that the business rescue practitioners were going to implement a plan that we argue that would have basically given
legitimacy.
The process back. Yes, it was legitimizing the process, and we're giving it back to the launderers and to the Guptas. So it was important that, yes, in implementing our strategy, we ensure that there is no dissipation of assets.
What a very complex case, but one that you have actually won. Ouma, thank you very much for that. That was the National Prosecuting Authority's Deputy National Director, Advocate Ouma Rabaji-Rasethaba.